Well, I guess to start, is this your first feature? And I guess how was your journey to get here, and how was the process of starting the film?
Yeah, it is my first feature. I started doing animation more than 10 years ago at this point. I started by just making GIFs, and then those GIFs turned into little 15-second animations, which turned into music videos. And my previous project before this was a 10-minute TV episode. So just a sort of a snowballing effect that got completely out of control. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a stop motion animator as well. I do a lot of claymation stuff. And I guess what was the pre-production process like for starting this?
Yeah, it's funny. I started animation. My first couple projects were claymation. I have so much respect for you for doing it. I do not have the patience. I just couldn't do it. I remember I was working on a project. I left it alone to go to the bathroom or something. I came back and the lights had like melted everything. And I was like, this is not, it's not my career path. Pre-production was a little unusual for this project. While I was writing the script, I was also creating the scenes and the assets in 3D. I really wanted to be like ready to go when we recorded, and I also wanted to go to the cast with as much information as I possibly could. So this is a little untraditional, but we actually had a trailer and almost a rough cut of the movie before we even recorded the voices, which that was really helpful for me because I really needed to know what the story was and know what was going on before I started bringing other people into it.
Yeah, I relate to that about melting the figures because I almost burned my carpet in my bedroom making stop motions. But
Yeah, it's maybe it's just a rite of passage.
hmm And I guess what was your inspiration for the film and what inspired you to make it?
Well, the film takes place in Florida. I grew up there. I lived there as a teenager in kind of the time period that the main character, his age. I had read a New York Times article about this company called Natalie's Orange Juice. Um, I don't know how worldwide it is. It's sort of like a boutique bougie orange juice that you might get at like a fancy cafe. But the story was that the woman who founded the company had named it after her daughter Natalie, and she was having a really hard time handing the business over to her or like grooming her to take over the business. I thought like something about like an orange juice tycoon training her daughter to run the company was just like it had such a fun sense of drama to me. And from there, that's kind of a B plot of the movie. From there, this entire world kind of sprawled out about the gig economy and the people of Florida.
Nice. And I think it's got a very kind of unique style of animation, especially compared to a lot of like big animated films that have been released lately. What was your inspiration for the overall visual style for?
It's a visual language I've been working in for a long time. Yeah, the stuff that I really like in animation is a little simpler and a little more expressive. So, yeah, I think some of the touch points would be like Gumby, or some of my favorite classic claymation is like the Frog and Toad series or the Rankin Bass Christmas specials. And it's the style is sort of an updated take on that with a video gamey sensibility. If you put it in a video game era, it's probably somewhere in between the N64 and the GameCube in terms of complexity.
Hmm. Well, so that you made the score for the film. How did the process of making music, how is that similar to making a film, or how is it different for you?
It's uh it's fun. I think for this one, I knew that I wanted to do a musical somehow. I knew that I wanted it to be a musical with a strong musical point of view, as opposed to the sort of traditional big Broadway orchestral thing you hear in almost any animated musical. Um, it changed a lot when I started bringing the cast in. Mia Folick is a great singer-songwriter, and she did a really incredible job with her song. And Jack Corbett, who plays the main character, has no singing experience. I saw on his Instagram story a picture of him holding a bass guitar, and I said, I'm pretty sure this guy can do this. Like, I'm pretty sure he has enough. If he's willing to do it, we can get a good performance out of him. And yeah, those he did those 5 songs like completely different than the demos that I had recorded, sort of like from the point of view of the character. And I think the sonic palette that came out of it was, even though this kid is not a musician, what would it sound like if the music of the film was made by a 16-year-old in their garage in Florida? So that's where you get the fuzzy synths and the drum machines and this sort of lo-fi sensibility.
Nice. And speaking of the actors, how was it directing their performances? Because obviously it's different. I found anyway when doing animation stuff, it's different, like trying to direct them rather than like in a set and for like a live action film.
It's really fun. Yeah, that was my favorite part of the process. If you have a specific actor or actress that you like, I'll tell you the story of how it all went with them.
Mm-hmm. And you get a name up again. They're not good for me. Elsie Fisher, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Elsie's great. We had been friends on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
for like forever. And I had actually worked with them on a little show called Summer Camp Island that I worked on prior to this. I wrote them a part as
Yeah.
as a slug, and we recorded over Zoom, and they had like three lines in it. So Elsie was someone who I knew I wanted in the movie, and it was a question of what part I was going to assign them. And what I ended up doing was watching, instead of watching their roles like eighth grade or Somewhere I Turned Pretty, which I know pretty well, I watched them on like some podcasts. And they were on this gamer podcast and doing this sort of like fake enthusiastic like let's go thing. And I thought, I think this is really good for this beatbox character who's the supportive best friend who adds like a warm touch to this kind of toxic friend group. Recording with Elsie was awesome. Obviously, animation royalty, the minions. So I took a back seat and let them go with it. But we actually had we were in the studio and somebody right above us was doing construction. And so we had to stop about every 30 seconds because somebody was hitting the studio with a jackhammer. But
Yeah.
we came up against something like that basically every day, but we powered through it.
Okay, I think I've got one more question. I'm from AirTV, which is the Student Filmmaking Society at Stirling University. And I guess for our audience who are a lot of aspiring student filmmakers, what kind of advice do you have for people trying to get started in the industry?
Um, yeah, I think my big advice for somebody who's in school or coming out of school, don't don't wait for things. Don't wait for things to happen to you. Don't wait for somebody to come around and give you an opportunity. Just keep doing what you're doing in school, which is making things with your friends and trying new things, because the learning is not over when you get that diploma. You're just at the beginning. So those years that you have right out of school, you're never going to be more free than that. You're never going to have more enthusiasm or energy than that. So,
Our,
don't just apply for jobs. Don't just go on to other people's sets. It's like, make it happen. And you can
our
do it.
motto is our motto is make films, not excuses.
There you go. Okay, so I didn't even need to say that. They're already drilling it
Yeah,
into you.
exactly. Well, thank you.
That's
It was a
awesome.
pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Ben. Pleasure's all mine.
I love the film.
Appreciate that. Thanks for watching it.